So there is a vote coming up, and no doubt there's going to be some passionate political debate. There's going to be sides playing against each other. They're going to be looking to bolster themselves and make the other guy look bad. There's going to be all sorts of theater going on. What is this thing we call democracy? Well, I would argue that it's all kabuki theater, to be honest with you. What we have is not democracy. This is not of the people. What we have here is a popularity contest. And we have one every 4 years, and we talk about it like it's the most important thing ever. All the evidence is there that what we're dealing with is not anything to do with democracy. What we have is essentially a bunch of slaves fighting over a suggestion box on a plantation. At least half of the product of our labor is owned, has an ownership claim placed on it by people in government. This is called taxation. So about half of what you make, half of the efforts, the product that you make in life is owned by the government when you take into account, provincial sales tax, income tax, excise tax, gasoline tax, all the taxes seen and hidden. And this isn't even including, the central banking system, the money supply that gets inflated, that it's essentially a tax. Our labor is exquisitely owned by the government, at least half of it. And now, we could get into the different types of shackles we have. I mean, we can't cross a border. What's a border? It's an imaginary line between tax farms, basically. We need special paperwork and permission to cross these borders to go from one place to another. If you try to start a business, it's not as easy as just putting up a sign and saying, this is what I'm doing, or putting out an advertisement. There's a lot of steps and regulatory hurdles you got to go to. The plantation masters are very cognizant of who should be allowed to be in business or not. Imagine trying to start an oil sands business, for example. I mean, you have to be very well connected to the plantation owners to start one of those types of businesses. So this is what I mean when I say, we're essentially on a plantation. We're very constrained in what we can and can't do in society, even though we have this narrative in our public schools and throughout life that we're in the land of the free or something like that. And we are, compared to, maybe 150 years ago. In a lot of ways we're freer, but in a lot of ways we're not freer. But we're still horribly constrained in a lot of ways that people just aren't aware of. And I think we ought to be working to strike at the root of those constraints. And I think one of the problems is that as we engage in these popularity contests and fight vehemently over what kind of suggestions we should put in the suggestion box in the plantation, we're totally distracted from a very obvious point, that we're on a fucking plantation. I mean, people are making ownership claims over us all the time. And that's not just, that's immoral. I mean, we figured out slavery was immoral over 100 years ago, at least. So why are we still on plantations? Or why have we switched from outright chattel slavery to this new kind of free-range slavery? Well, it's very productive, for one thing. I mean, if you can create slaves that imagine themselves to be free, and they're all sorts of productive, and you can glean their productivity off of them. But that doesn't change the fact that you're still, in many sense, a slave, because other people have an ownership claim over what's yours. And over over your body, for crying out loud. I mean, you're not allowed to put certain types of chemicals or drugs or substances in your body. That's outright slavery. It's ownership. It's an ownership claim. So I'm skeptical that engaging in a vehement popularity contest and suggestion box stuffing party is the best way to get off the plantation. To me, it seems like it's bolstering the idea that we ought to be on a plantation. To me, it seems like it's giving legitimacy to the fact that there's a ruling class. I mean, we have these sports teams that go and represent our plantation, and we have all this plantation pride, and you know, we go rah rah. We look at the plantation's flag and have pride in our hearts over the fact that we're slaves. So, and this is all bolstered by engaging in the vote in a lot of ways. So I don't know. You know, I can see there being some legitimacy to, we want this plantation managed better. We want to have a kinder set of masters in power. We want to have better conditions on the plantation. That's all fine and good. But let's not ever be distracted from the fact that we're on a plantation. And the way we get off the plantation is by first just fucking noticing that we're on one. That we're on a tax farm. That we're on a, you know, we're being milked by human farmers like livestock. This shouldn't even be controversial, but yet many of you will probably think that I'm being extreme here. The way I think we get off the plantation is noticing that we're on one, and then taking personal action in our lives. And personal action to me means talking with our kids about what's meaningful, taking an interest, a personal interest in what's going on in their lives. It means it means nurturing relationships in our lives that are virtuous, that bring value, mutual value. And it's about cutting off toxic relationships where people are sucking off of us. I think we need to cut those people out of our lives, even if they're family, even if they pull a guilt trip on us. I think it's important to cut them out of our lives. And I think that's how the state dissolves eventually. I think that's how we gain our freedom. That's how the tax farm goes away, because eventually we just realize, look, we just don't want to have anything to do with sociopaths. We don't want to have anything to do with power mongers, people that want to manage our lives and govern us. And we just see that as a mental illness as opposed to some kind of virtue. And then we stop voting, and then we stop participating in the Hunger Games and the Matrix, and we just become free people engaged in a free society, providing services to each other of mutual value, win-win relationships instead of the win-lose relationship that we have right now. My thoughts on government.